Somalia is located on the Horn of Africa and has long been considered a failed state. The small country poses a serious security threat due to the fact that warlords, jihadists, and pirates all have a foothold in the country. However, despite this, there are efforts to stabilize the country by the African Union and the UN. The people in this clip aren't fleeing from being killed, they are desperately running for food, which is being provided by an NGO in the country's capital of Mogadishu. Over 40% of the people in Somalia survive on less than $1 a day, and the nation has been at civil war for over 15 years. Due to this, there is a high number of refugees that flee the country. One of the terrorist groups that plagues this small nation is Al-Shabaab, and Somali pirates have long been an issue in the country as they frequently attempt to hijack commercial ships in the Indian Ocean. Gun violence is extremely rampant in the country as warlords try to gain power, and the UNHCR estimates that over 100,000 people have fled Somalia in this year alone, with most of them going to Ethiopia or Kenya. However, most of the refugees that went to Kenya went to the Dadaab refugee camp, which was originally designed to house 160,000 people but is now housing over 500,000. In 1993, Somali President Siad Barre was overthrown, and this caused chaos that was never solved when the state fell. To add to the chaos, the government of Somalia reported that between 200 and 300 Somalis drowned in the Mediterranean Sea while trying to seek asylum in Europe. Going back to the situation in Kenya, they are now closing the Dadaab refugee camp, and this is partially due to the fact that the camp has become a breeding ground for Al-Shabaab terrorists, which have carried out many attacks in Kenya. In Kenya, there are over 30,000 urban refugees, and the Somali refugee crisis has lasted over 3 decades. To help combat the refugee situation in Somalia, the UN is providing returnees with transportation, basic household items, and 3 months' worth of food rations, which the UNHCR hopes to increase to 12 months' worth of food rations. Filippo Grandi, who is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, stated that, "We don't want to help people go back and they become internally displaced people." Families who return to Somalia from the Dadaab refugee camp in Kenya say they feel abandoned and betrayed by the UN, due to the fact that they use small cash payments to encourage them to return back to Somalia. However, many did actually return home, but in unspeakable conditions where they had nothing but the clothes on their backs. Sayadka Noor, a 38-year-old mother of 3, said she feels betrayed by the UN aid workers and the Kenyan authorities. She said there are explosions every day, food is extremely expensive, and you have to pay for everything even if you are sick. As the international community supports a weak government that was recently installed in Somalia, both Kenya and Ethiopia are considering resettlement as a viable and durable solution for their rapidly expanding refugee population. Aside from this, businessmen in Somalia are starting to hire private armies to fight back against the warlords that hold stakes in the country. This clip shows the conditions of the camps which are meant to house Somali refugees. This camp in particular is funded by local businesses and is maintained by the locals themselves. However, despite these positive efforts, this camp is shortly running out of supplies as it houses around 1,114 families and is expected to receive around 200 more. All in all, Somalia is a nation which is in need of heavy aid and reform, and hopefully one day Somalians can regain their country back into a nation that is peaceful and prosperous like they rightfully deserve.
The TFG has the support of the international community and the peacekeeping troops of the African Union. But there has been little peace in Mogadishu. On this morning in May 2010, the Shababs took over a building. The government army, the militia, and the African Union were having trouble dislodging them. Later that month, a militia leader known as Commander Abdu is shot down in the street. A paramilitary group well known here, the Ahlu Sunnah, supports the government. Its fighters say they hope for a better future for Somalia.